Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Warriors Season 1, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, Mai Ling finally puts her plan into action, and she sends the fungi during a celebration to end up. I don't know if the plan was to kill Father June. I mean, he seemed to be the main target. Obviously, this is going to bring like a lot more down on Chinatown because other people were hurt. There's at least one woman that was killed, a white woman at that, but there was also other people that were hurt in the explosion who were Chinese. They don't matter to everyone else, but they only matter to the only person that matters for the cops are the people that were injured, including the one woman that died. So there's that. Then you add in that luckily Father June is still alive because of Bolo and Young June, because Young June noticed the dynamite the explosives at the last second. Bolo was able to save Father June, and now because of this, they know the fungi are behind this. It's just why are they doing it? So him and Assam go visit Chow to get answers, and so Chow, who has no allegiances to nobody, who only has allegiances to himself, is like, yeah, I'm gonna tell you what happened. I mean, granted, you would put a gun in my face, but it's like, right, put the gun out of my face and I'll tell you what's what, because it's not worth dying over. So it's like, cool. He tells them about what the Long Z did, and other people kind of on the council don't want to go to war, but for June, it's like, they already declared the war the moment they did what they did, which Assam and Bolo have his back. It's like, right, he wants to scrap, we scrap. And even Assam was like, yeah, I got your back because you're my brother, until you like severely screw this up, and then it's every onion for themselves. So they go in and they murder the fungi. I love that it's just like Assam and once again, he's taking people down, but we still see that he's like not killing people. I mean, he killed people last episode because it was like, yeah, it's do or die here because I'm sure like he's doing enough damage to maybe kill these people, but like obviously there's no mistaking it when it comes to Bolo and Young June. Oh, they are definitely killing everybody, but it's hard to say with Azam. It seems like he's mainly knocking them out, but he might be doing enough damage to end up killing them as well. I mean, it's not like he skews away from killing anyone, but it feels like, because he doesn't use weapons at all, he keeps it to hand to hand. Whereas like Bolo and Young June, which I do love that Bolo had an entire room to himself. And it's just like, I also love that Young June, like the last guy, Young June shoots, and then you have Assam being like, wait, you had that the entire time? You waited till we all got to these fisticuffs with these people, like super close and personal, because that's what he wanted, to send a message of like, yeah, it's easy just to go in there blasting. It's like, nah, he wants to take a little pride in it and being like, yeah, I want to make this up close and personal. I want this to matter. I want, I guess to kind of put some fair, make it somewhat fair, I guess. But anyway, Bolo handled the entire room by himself. It's like, Jesus, Bolo. It's like, And I just love that he had gotten a bottle smashed over his head, so his head is covered in blood, and he's just like shrugging his shoulders like, I did what I do. Took a bottle of alcohol and bounced with them. Especially that last guy got it pretty hard, because I don't know, like, it seemed like he took the hilt of like that hatchet and brought the dude's head down onto like the bars. I don't know if like the butt of that like hatchet ended up going through or what. That's interesting. Turns out Father June is okay. He was recovering and everything. And so it's a sit down between Father June and Long Z, and not even a sit down. It's just kind of like, right. It's like, right, we've both done a lot to get here. I actually love that conversation between Father June and Long Z, because it's like, right, we've gone through so much crossing the salt to get here. They promised us there would be gold in the mountains, when in actuality, the gold was beneath the mountains. We worked so hard on the railroads, well, others did, while you and me, like, we built out empires of our own in this country. And it's like, right, to settle things, for there to be truly peace between us, the fungi have to be wiped out. It's like, oh, I'll get on that immediately, but Long Z's not stupid. He's like, I know exactly what that meant. Doesn't matter what Father June said. He wasn't going to let this go, because even Father Z was going to take responsibility. He's like, regardless of who gave the orders or whatever, who was behind this. It wasn't me, but it's still my organization and I'm responsible. So he's a captain trying to go down with the ship, but it's like he was trying to appease, but it's like, yeah, Long Z is dead, and that who knows what that means for the Long Z as a total. Like, it's like, right, you are my, because this is war. That was his declaration of war. Now, whether it's just going to stop with, hey, I'm going to kill you and maybe a few people and leave like some of you battered and bruised until you like sink and like crawl back into your holes and stay there type of thing, or whether it is just because I'm going to stop with Long Z. I highly doubt it, because Father June definitely has like that vengeful, like vengefulness in him. I mean, obviously we see young June's got it as well, so I'm curious to see how that plays out. Immediately, Long Z knew that it was Mai Ling that was behind all this. Like, I don't know whether she legitimately didn't think things would turn out this way, because she probably thought like Father June would die, but it's like, I guess it's also her playing innocent because she is working with Buckley, which we finally got what his perspective in all of this is. Like, we know he's playing some angle, we just weren't sure. So him and the mayor had to sit down with the senator. So he's the one really pushing the Exclusion Act, but some other people are like pushing back against it. So for him, that's why he's going to become the president. He's running for president. So it's like, okay. And all of this is going to be the platform he runs on. There's the anti-Chinese sentiment. And it's like, okay, especially him being like, oh, they went to their country and they're depleted their resources. Now they've come to ours and they're depleting ours. But it's like, okay, and Buckley's going to be like, so it's like, right, we're finally worked our way up to the food chain of like, who's at the top of this, and that's the senator. Now, granted, is Buckley just going to stop there being like, hey, I'm going to work with you? Like, will he try to take the reins himself, or will he position himself? Like, is that his end goal? But because Buckley seems like the power-hungry type, that is like, will he be satisfied with just being an aide to the president? I mean, because I guess it's like, truth be told, you might be positioning yourself to be, if you position yourself under the senator who's running for president as a potential VP, put you in a very high position where, hey, I can end up bumping off the president. Saying that in the context of the show, I don't want that isolated and taped off. I am talking about the conversation of the show. I do not mean that in any real capacities. I feel like I kind of have to state that I am talking about the show. Like when you're like, oh, you're going to unalive yourself, you have to be like, oh, I'm talking about in Minecraft, or something like that, right? So I'm like, it's almost that, no, that's a terrible example. You get what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't want that misconstrued in any shape or form. So I have to really focus on the fact is I am referencing the show. But if Buckley could easily bump off the president and then fill that void and become president himself. Like, that might be his end goal. He is the machinacious person that he is. So we'll see if that, because that has been my biggest thing of, what is his motivation for why he's doing this? And it's like, right, it strengthens the platform and puts him in, so I guess the senator sent Buckley here specifically to serve the mayor to like allocate things. That's why he needs there to be a war. He needs things to kind of escalate and get worse and worse. A few cracked eggs in the run. That means like, I mean, they're easily willing to sacrifice any Chinese life because they don't matter. But yeah, a few white people that die, that just adds more fuel to the fire. So it's like, oh, it's better and better. Like the front page is covering what happened in Chinatown with the explosions and the deaths and stuff. So. But yeah, my point is, and I brought this up previously too, what does Mai Ling really get out of working with Buckley? Like, how do you benefit from this relationship? Does Lee Young know what you're up to? Does he think like you're just trying to seize power for the Long Z? Which she's just like Buckley. She is someone that we know what she's going through. In fact, we got a better understanding of that story because of Penelope and, Awesome. He explained, hey, I was that scrappy dude and like we'd fight people like all the time. And there was one person I went into a fight with, single blow. It ended up with the person like hitting his head and dying. Turns out he was the son of a warlord, Sun Yuan, and I think and he was going to kill me, but my sister married him. And it is the situation of, I didn't realize she was the one that needed saving, but Penelope points out, we're capable of saving ourselves. And I think it is that thing of, well, my sister did come here and she made a position for herself, but also knowing that she's going to war with another Tong, and it's like, yeah, you have the Longzi on your side, but I mean, you are married to Longzi, so I don't know if he'd be so quick to throw you under the bus. He doesn't know what you're really doing behind the scenes with Buckley, but he knows you're doing something. But he probably thinks everything she's doing is for the purposes of strengthening the Longzi, when in actuality she has her own motives. So I feel like he's probably not going to think much of it, essentially, because she'll probably be able to sweep that on the rug, being like, well, it's about this and that, you know? But my point is that Assam probably, he recognizes that, but he also sees that his sister is in danger. So he's being, especially after last episode, finding something to fight for. Is he going to help his sister? They are on opposite sides of this thing, because when the meeting happened between Father June and Longzi, he was kind of looking up at Mai Ling, but he couldn't really look her in the eye. So we'll have to wait and see how that whole thing kind of plays out. Also, kind of answer something I was curious about too, whether or not young June would try and take the reins. Is like, right, I mean, he's not in a position to really like bump off his dad to take it, but it feels like that could have been somewhere that this could have gone. But obviously young June's probably like, if he is going to do it, it's probably going to I don't know, because he's still torn by the fact is that, yes, regardless of anything that they've gone through, that's still his father, and it's the only family he's got in this world, especially after last episode where we know he feels like he doesn't belong anywhere. He can't go to China because China isn't really home. He can't fit in here because America, even though he was born here in San Francisco, he will never be accepted as an American. So it's like, I have nowhere to belong except Hopway, and it has to be, and the only person I really have is my dad. So still leaves open the possibility he might try gunning for the throne at some point in time, but at least for now, it's just like, it doesn't seem like that's on his mind, but we'll see. So all the while that's happening, on the other side of the episode, Lee is trying to piece it all together, like, hey, there is more to this, because he chased after the guy, and he found out the guy wasn't going to Longzi territory, because he figured this had to be about Longzi expanding their territory to the opium game, but he noticed that the guy ran to the Feng Hai territory, but that struck a chord with Bill, because Bill owes him money, because Damon had literally paid him a visit, like, scene or two earlier in that, from that, saying like, yo, here I am with your wife and your kids. It's specifically a toddler. It's like, you owe the Feng Hai money. It's been 3 weeks. Your time is up. He's like, I got the money. He's like, you don't actually have the money. We know that at the bare minimum, that 30, because like I said, at the time, we don't know how much he fully got from Atoy, or whether it was just a fraction. But it's like, yeah. I wonder, has he come back time and time again to get money from her, or what? Either way, he doesn't actually have the money to pay off the Feng Hai, so he's trying to buy himself some time. He ends up going to Leary, being like, hey, and made a point to drop the fact is that Damon works for the Feng Hai, because it's like, oh, Leary won't help you otherwise, because he's like, nah, you made your bed, you're a bad bet on. It makes sense, because he's kind of bet on Bill twice, and it's kind of blown up in his face. So of course he's not going to be too keen on like stepping in this regard. But Bill knew exactly what he was doing, bringing up, and it's even Leary's not stupid. He's like, I know what you meant to hear. Let me hear those words. So what are you talking about? I was like, wait, he's an Irishman working for them. Disgusting. He has no pride. So when Damon comes to pick up his pay, Leary's kind of like, okay, so, because he's like, oh, your father would be ashamed of you. He's like, dude, my dad died penniless with only the shirt on his back in this very bar. So, yeah, kind of don't care what he thinks. I'm doing what I can to survive, just like everyone else, It's like, regardless of how you feel about it, the Feng Hai are treating me better, and I am getting consistent work, unlike the men that you and your men here, So Leary does this thing and like, right, let's kind of duke it out. And part of me was almost thinking like, does Damon stand a chance? I feel like Leary's going to like mop the floor with him, which Damon got in some good licks, but it's like, yeah, it was Leary's rodeo. And the fact is he was beating the ever-living brakes off of Damon, especially at the end. It's like, oh yeah, cracking some jokes about his mom, and then just like in the end, just because it's just, Leary's a very, very angry dude, and he's got a lot of rage and got a lot of anger, and it does feel like it might eventually come toe-to-toe between, for whatever reason, him and Assam have to like duke it out. And that's going to be interesting. Like, right, Assam is like the more skilled fighter, but it is Leary. Leary's like a brick house, and he's big and he's strong. So you feel like that those two duking out would happen eventually, but I don't know. But Leary was going to literally beat and punch him to death. But it was Bill being like, all right, stop. You have to stop or you're going to kill him. Because it's like, right, you killing the guy is just going to bring the Fung. It's like, what did you bring the Fung Hai like to your doorstep? And it's like, which Larry's fine with that fight, but it's like, what did you expect, Bill? What you thought, like, you knew that something like this was a possibility. It's just a thing. I think it's that thing of wanting to like kind of scare him into submission is one thing versus straight up killing him, which Larry's like, no, I'm not going to kill him. You are. Because now that you've set him up, you've got two options. You could drop him off to the Fung Hai and let them treat him. Because the moment they do, he's going to come back, wounds licked, having licked his wounds, come back and will come after you and your family. Or you can put him down right now and all your problems go away. It's like, but Damon kept stressing it time and time again. It's like, yeah, just because you deal with me doesn't mean your debt with the Fung Hai is going to go away. Because Bill's thinking of it if, like, right, if Damon's out of commission, or at the very least, if I scare him off, he'll let my debt go. It's like, no, he can't, because it'll be on, like, the Fung Hai would push him, like, he'd suffer the consequences from the Fung Hai for not collecting your debt. And it's like, but, because I think Bill's also trying to think, well, he's the only white guy they have on staff, so if they don't have him, they can't come after me in, like, outside of Chinatown. That's his thought process. But the Fung Hai will most likely find a way. It's probably not, it'll probably backlash on them to do it, but they're also in a position right now of like, well, they got enough on their plate because of the whole Hopway and Long Z of it all. But we don't know. Like, that's definitely not going to just go away for Bill, because Bill finishes the job. He bashes Damon's head in. And it shakes into his core, because it's like, yeah, I wanted to get rid of the guy, but it's another thing of, Bill's probably killed people before, but it's always probably been in a sense of a line of duty situation. It's never been like, I outright murdered a guy. And now he has to live with that, because it's like, because this is a byproduct of his actions. If I had just paid my debts, if I made the mistake of, I couldn't stop myself. My addiction is so bad, and my family was getting dragged in it, and I want to protect my family, but I am the one that's putting my family in most danger because of my action and my choices. So after he got back home, he was just kind of like, and I think it's so poetic that it's like, the last thing you see with Bill is him staring at that coin in the distance, because it's just like, oh yeah, that gambler in him is just already, it's like he can't help himself, And his wife knows something's up, because the moment Bill had asked Lee to watch over his house with a gun in hand, and she's like, oh, what's going on? He's like, oh yeah, we're working late, just a criminal threat we're dealing with. But she's like, right, you're a good and sweet guy, Lee, but you're an atrocious liar. And it's like, but stay with Bill long enough, you'll become better at it. And it's like, oh, you're already better at it now, when he lied about how delicious the sandwich was. So it does, she knows something's up. She probably already knows about his gambling issues. She probably just didn't know how bad things had gotten this time, because she probably didn't even know that Damon was associated with that, because, all right, he used to be a cop and stuff, so she didn't even correlate with the fact is that there was something there. But now Bill has to live with the fact is of what he did. And but Lee, like, didn't ask any questions, because it's like, would you even tell me if I told you? And he was like, didn't really say anything, but he did thank Lee for looking after his family, and they kind of go their separate ways. So Bill has to live with that, because Bill talked about it before, that he was at one point in time a good cop, but circumstances and trying to feed your family and also feeding his addiction sends you down a path that you can't really come back from, and you kind of lose yourself along the way. And I think for Bill, yeah, he's crossed certain lines before, but he's never crossed a line as severe as this, as once again just killing someone in cold blood. I'm not saying he probably hasn't killed anyone as a cop, but like, yeah, he's probably put down bad guys before, people that they were dealing with that might have come up before. I mean, who knows? Maybe this is the first person Bill's ever killed, but wasn't Bill a soldier, if I remember correctly? I think so. I think Bill was a soldier, so I think it's a different thing when it's like, right, it's not in war, it is just back home as a officer, and it's just, but I think Bill was part of Lincoln's War, wasn't he? I know like Leary and them were, but I want to say, because he made the whole point about, I think he said he was in Gettysburg, maybe. I think like Leary and them were, but I think Bill was too. You'd assume so, like if you were a young man at all, like during that time, if you were a fighter, someone viable enough to be a fighter, you most likely took part in that Civil War. So it's definitely gonna be interesting to see how much this affects Bill going forward, and what this means for a story. In fact, what this means for everything and everyone going forward. That's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.